Hi, welcome to our channel Programming of Mind, where we accelerate your knowledge with concise, from high-value book summaries. Let's begin. The Full Circle, Living with Wisdom and Acceptance. After Siddhartha's deep realizations by the river, he reached the point where he could embody the wisdom he had spent his entire life seeking. Enlightenment, in his experience, was not a state of perfection or an unattainable goal, but a natural, flowing state of being. Siddhartha's journey, from the arrogance of a young Brahmin to the depths of meditation and reflection, had brought him to an understanding that the path to true peace was not one of denial or rejection of life's complexities. Rather, it was about accepting life as it is without the need to control, manipulate, or categorize it. This acceptance became the foundation of Siddhartha's final awakening and his ability to live fully in harmony with the world. The return of the past, reconciliation and integration. At this stage, Siddhartha's life had come full circle. He was no longer bound by his past actions, nor by the identity he had once held. He had been a prince, a seeker, a lover, and an ascetic. But now, Siddhartha had transcended the need for labels and distinctions. He no longer saw his past as something that needed to be fixed or corrected. Rather, he accepted it as an essential part of who he was and how he had come to be. One day, Siddhartha reflected on his past experiences. He thought about his time with Kamala, his time spent with the merchant Kamaswami, and the days he had lived as an ascetic, wandering in search of answers. He realized that each of these phases had been necessary for his growth. Without the experiences of wealth, pleasure, and pain, he would never have learned the lessons he now understood so deeply. Without the struggles and challenges of his ascetic period, he would not have fully appreciated the simplicity and peace he found in the present. Siddhartha recognized that all his past was part of the same continuous flow of life. There was no need to reject any part of it. The mistakes he had made, the suffering he had experienced, and the choices he had taken, all of it had shaped him and contributed to his wisdom. He saw that life, much like the river, flows without judgment. There is no good or bad, no right or wrong in the river's flow. It simply is. And so it is with life. This realization was liberating for Siddhartha. He no longer carried the burden of regret or the weight of past decisions. Instead, he saw each moment as part of the grand, unbroken cycle of life. Siddhartha's journey of spiritual awakening had brought him to a place of complete acceptance. He was no longer seeking to escape or transcend life's struggles. He was now fully present within them. He had reconciled with his past, integrating all of his experiences into the wisdom he now embodied. The final test, living in the world with awareness. Siddhartha's ultimate test came when he was once again faced with the world, its distractions, its desires, and its endless pursuit of material wealth. However, Siddhartha no longer saw the world as something to be resisted or avoided. He had learned that true enlightenment was not about renouncing life, but about embracing it with full awareness. During a visit to a nearby town, Siddhartha encountered a merchant who was consumed by the pursuit of wealth and status. The merchant was driven by the same desires that had once ruled Siddhartha's life. But Siddhartha was no longer attracted to these external markers of success. He had found peace within himself, and he knew that true fulfillment could not be found in the accumulation of things. Siddhartha's compassion for the merchant grew, as he saw how trapped the merchant was in his own desires. Siddhartha had no desire to change the merchant or to judge him. He simply understood that the merchant's suffering was his own, and he accepted it without judgment. Siddhartha's journey had led him to the realization that the path to wisdom is not about seeking an escape from life's challenges, but about fully engaging with life in each moment. He had transcended the need for external validation or success, and was now living with complete awareness of the present. By letting go of his attachments and accepting life as it was, Siddhartha had found the peace he had long sought. The role of the teacher, sharing the wisdom of the river. Even though Siddhartha had attained a deep level of understanding, He understood that his journey was not complete until he shared his wisdom with others. He had learned from the river that the flow of wisdom and knowledge was not meant to be hoarded, but shared with those who were ready to receive it. Siddhartha knew that, like the river, his wisdom had to be passed on to continue the flow of understanding and connection between all beings. Siddhartha's teachings were not delivered in the form of lectures or doctrines. Instead, he offered his wisdom through his example. His life, lived in full awareness and presence, was the greatest lesson he could offer. He did not need to say much. His presence spoke for itself. Those who encountered him saw in him a peaceful, harmonious being, someone who had learned to live in perfect balance with the world. They saw that Siddhartha was not afraid of life's challenges. Rather, he embraced them with grace and understanding. Siddhartha's true wisdom came from his deep connection with the world around him. It was not something to be spoken about, but something to be experienced through the simple act of living. Siddhartha had learned that the essence of wisdom was not in intellectual knowledge, but in direct experience and awareness. His role as a teacher was not to impose his knowledge on others, but to guide them to find their own wisdom through their own experiences. Siddhartha's teachings were about living fully in the present moment, embracing life with all of its complexities, and understanding that all things are connected in the vast, eternal flow of existence. A real-life parallel, the teacher as a living example. Siddhartha's role as a teacher who shares wisdom through his example is similar to the role of mentors and wise elders in many cultures. For example, Olivia, a seasoned artist, had spent decades perfecting her craft. As she became older, Olivia began to realize that her true purpose was not just to create art for herself, but to share her wisdom with younger generations. She began offering private lessons to aspiring artists, not by simply teaching techniques, but by showing them how to approach their art with presence and mindfulness. Olivia never gave her students a set of rigid rules to follow. Instead, she guided them by sharing her own process and allowing them to find their own path. She encouraged them to embrace their imperfections and to be fully present in the act of creating. Through her example, Olivia taught her students that art was not about perfection or external recognition. It was about expressing one's truth and connecting deeply with the creative process. Just as Siddhartha had shared his wisdom through the simplicity of living, Olivia shared hers through the example of her own life and art. The legacy of Siddhartha, living in the flow of life. As Siddhartha's life drew to a close, he understood that his legacy would not be found in the teachings he left behind, but in the lives he had touched through his example. He had lived in full awareness, embracing life's challenges, joys, and sorrows with open arms. He had learned to see the sacred in every moment and every experience, and he had shared this wisdom with others by simply being present. Siddhartha's legacy was not one of fixed teachings or rigid doctrines. It was a legacy of presence, of living fully in the moment, without attachment to outcomes. Siddhartha's life was his teaching, and those who encountered him would carry his wisdom forward, not through books or words, but through their own experiences and awareness. Siddhartha had learned that true peace and wisdom come from within, and that the path to enlightenment is not a journey toward some distant goal, but a continuous flow of growth and understanding. His life, like the river, had been one of constant change and transformation. But through it all, Siddhartha had found peace by accepting life as it was and embracing the flow of existence. A real-life parallel, living the legacy. Siddhartha's legacy of living with presence and awareness can be seen in the lives of people who have chosen to live authentically and with compassion. For example, Thomas, a man in his 60s, had spent much of his life focused on accumulating wealth and status. However, as he grew older, he began to reflect on what truly mattered. He realized that the greatest gift he could give to his children and grandchildren was not material possessions, but the example of a life well lived. Thomas began to focus on spending more time with his family, sharing his love and wisdom through his presence rather than through things. He let go of his attachment to external success and learned to embrace the present moment with gratitude. By living in the moment and showing up fully for his family, Thomas created a legacy of love, awareness, and connection. Thank you for listening, and please like the video and subscribe for more great upcoming content that will put you in top 1% people in the world.